Hello and welcome to Views on News. I am Jawad Tehami. Israel has assassinated Palestinian resistance group Hamas's leader and former Prime Minister of Palestinian Authority Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran just hours after the inauguration of the new president of Iran. Iranian Revolutionary Guards have confirmed his death. Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian says regarding this particular act of aggression by Israel, let me quote him, Iran will defend its territorial integrity, honor, pride and dignity and make the terrorist invaders regret their cowardly action, unquote. Likewise, Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas has also condemned this assassination, terming it cowardly. He has urged his people to unite, be patient and steadfast in the face of Israeli occupation. On this particular assassination and the act of aggression by Israel, condemnations from all across have been pouring in, including from Pakistan, China, Russia, Qatar, Turkey, Egypt and Iraq also. Pakistan's Foreign Office has condemned this particular assassination, saying in a statement, let me quote, Pakistan condemns terrorism in all its forms and manifestations, including extrajudicial and extraterritorial killings, irrespective of the motives. We are deeply shocked by the timing of this reckless act, coinciding with the inauguration of the President of Iran, an event attended by several foreign dignitaries, including the Deputy Prime Minister of Pakistan. Now, this particular assassination comes at a time when, according to Gaza's health ministry, when we talk about the situation that is unfolding in Gaza, the brutality that has been unleashed on the innocent people in Gaza by the Israeli regime since 7th of October, so far, because of indiscriminate bombing on the innocent people in Gaza, 39,445 people have been killed, 91,073 people have been wounded in the last 10 months. Let's talk about what could be the possible implications of this particular assassination on the regional stability and security. Also, what could be the prospects of any sort of success, any chance of success of the peace talks that might lead to any sort of a ceasefire as far as the situation in Gaza is concerned. What's the role and the responsibility of the international community when it comes to holding such an aggressor accountable? Let me quickly bring in our esteemed panel of guests who are joining us in the studio. Mr. Jauhar Saleem, he is former Foreign Secretary and President currently at the Institute of Regional Studies. Mr. Saleem, thank you very much for your time, for being with us on the show tonight. We really appreciate that. Also in the studio, we are honored to have been joined by Dr. Manzoor Afridi, is expert in international relations. Dr. Afridi, thank you very much for your time, also for being with us on the show tonight. We really appreciate that. On Skype, at the same time, we are honored to have been joined by Mr. Nader Al-Turk. He is Deputy Palestinian Head of Mission, Palestinian Embassy in Pakistan. Excellency Al-Turk, thank you very much for your time, also for being with us on the show tonight. We really appreciate that. Both of you gentlemen, if you allow me, let me begin the discussion with Mr. Nader Al-Turk. Mr. Nader Al-Turk, this particular act of aggression by Israel, we have seen the kind of brutality they have unleashed on the innocent people in Gaza from last 10 months. Now this transnational act of aggression. Firstly, share with our viewers what are the sentiments across Palestine regarding this particular act of aggression by Israel.
Assalamu alaikum. First of all, thanks a lot for giving me the opportunity to be give me the honor to be your guest tonight, dear brother, and regards to your honorable guests. Actually, the Israeli crimes continued not only from 2nd of October, but it started since early of the 20th century. Then they are established by terrorism in 1948. And that continued. This is not, we are very sad to lose one of Palestinians' leader. He was Prime Minister for the 10th government of Palestine. And it is really angry as a Palestinian that the Israelis keep going with their crimes against humanity by killing people out of court, keep infect the international law without getting punished from any of the international society. Only we have orders from many respectable and honorable international courts to take Mr. Netanyahu to be punished, but until now the Americans make that decision not easy to be a bear on the ground. What has happened actually, that the Israel right now, we were speaking in the last few weeks about ceasefire in Gaza, according to a plan of Mr. Biden and the American government. But Netanyahu do his best to kill more and more Palestinians, continue the genocide, crimes against humanity, ethnic cleansing in Gaza. On the other hand, keep killing Palestinians, leaders, other leaders from other countries, to be sure that he will never reach to getting any peaceful process for the situation which we are facing right now. Because he is only care about one thing, to continue as the prime minister of the Israelis, because end of this war, end of this genocide means that the Israelis courts going to take him for the court to be punished for being corrupted and guilty in 4 files of corruptions. This is one thing. Second, he thinks that the internal situation for the Israelis, they are right now speak about Netanyahu, that he is the worst Jew leader since 2000 years until now, and he is leading them for determination, leads them for destroy their ability to stay in the occupied Palestinian territories. He's going to destroy their illegal state on the land of Palestine. He is going to destroy the future of the Jews themselves. He is a very radical Zionist with a very radical government, with Ben Gvir and Smotrich, who are united only in one thing: to displace Palestinian, displaced destroy any future of peace in the regional. And one thing needs to be known: stability in Palestine, it has means stability in the region, stability for the world. This is going to make peace, you need to start from Palestine.
Netanyahu. Well taken. I seek your pardon, Mr. AlTurk, to interject over here. I'll come back to you. There is a statement by President Mahmoud Abbas also regarding urging his people to remain united and steadfast against Israeli occupation. I'll come back to you, take your deeper understanding as to what could be the manifestation of that particular unity when it comes to the Palestinian people from all the factions uniting together against the Israeli occupation. Let me proceed with the discussion. Mr. Saleem, Ambassador Saleem, now when we talk about this particular timing, the inauguration of the new president of Iran and this particular act of aggression by Israel happens, what does that basically depict about that mindset that is at play at the moment as far as Israeli policy is concerned?
Yeah, this is very unfortunate because it really destabilizes the situation to a great deal further. The circumstances, as you have rightly said, the inauguration of a new Iranian president, Masoud Pezeshkian, and the fact that there were leaders from 110 countries, including the Deputy Prime Minister of Pakistan, as you've mentioned, and Ismail Haniyeh, was based in Qatar, and Israelis knew that, but they chose to assassinate him through a missile strike, apparently. On an apartment that he was residing there, clearly show that they were not bothered about escalating another very dangerous situation with Iran. We would all recall that just some weeks back they were in a way sort of they were in an eyeball to eyeball situation. There was a face-off. First they had a strike against an Iranian embassy, and then the Iranians threw about 300 projectiles. And that situation was, it was intense diplomacy, which avoided further escalation. And then again now we see that in just 24 hours they have assassinated, first they did Fuad Shukr, the military leader of Hezbollah, and then within 24 hours, Ismail Haniyeh, the leader of Hamas. And he's the leader of the political wing of Hamas. The military leaders are based in Gaza, like Yahya Sinwar and Mohammed Daif. So this is, there are various dimensions in terms of implications.
Okay, so if we try to understand the perspective from the Israeli side, would they consider it a victory? Because you already just mentioned a short while ago that he is the head of the political bureau, the military leaders are based in Gaza. So what's the point of taking him out at this particular critical time?
Exactly, and that is why many analysts are surprised, because they point out that Yahya Sinwar is considered a hardliner. He's on the ground. He's actually, he's the one calling the shots in Gaza. And there were even some sort of, like media reports of sort of, certain differences in perceptions between him and Ismail Haniyeh in terms of these negotiations, the back channel diplomacy going on for ceasefire agreement. So in this situation, assassinating Haniyeh means that they have hit the relative moderates, so that brings one to the point where the Israelis are actually serious in the ceasefire negotiations that are being conducted. Now, in Israel, some analysts have, and I think, our friend Nadir also mentioned that, they believe that Netanyahu does not care about anything else. He's just bothered about his own political survival. And it is true that the day this war, this conflict ends, for instance, and there are polls in Israel, he will definitely lose power. And then there are cases against him in the courts, and there are very solid cases as well. Mm-hmm. So it is actually in his interest that this conflict, lasts longer. And perhaps, and also he's trying to sort of, because the loss of face that he had after 7th October, because, he always projected himself as a very strong leader who could defend the Israelis, who could secure the Israeli territory. Right. But when he failed to do that, and there was a lot of criticism, so now by doing these type of sort of, carrying out these type of assassinations, he is building his credentials as to, just trying to regain that position of the savior of Israelis, or sort of, the Jewish state, because he can claim now, look, that I have killed all the major enemies of Israel. But if that is the case, the fact is that is about his political survival. In terms of the implications for the regional peace and stability, this would be very destabilizing. If there's no ceasefire there, if there's another escalation, and Iran, as we all know, they have promised retaliation. Yeah. So when that happens, then Israelis would retaliate in turn. So what does that?
It will keep on growing naturally.
Exactly, and then on the one hand it's with Hamas, and on the other hand they're escalating with Hezbollah as well. You see, Hezbollah had stayed away from this conflict because in the beginning of this conflict there was a lot of fear and concern that what if Hezbollah joins it as well, and then there would be a two-front war. That did not happen because of intense pressure and diplomacy. Right. But now again, now it seems that he's confident enough, Netanyahu, that he is ready to wage a sort of conflict with both the parties. So I think it's the net effect of all this would be more devastation, more destabilizing, and unfortunately
more devastation, more destabilizing effect it would have on the regional equation that is currently at play. Dr. Afridi, when we talk about the timing firstly, and also the regional implications of this particular assassination, as you've heard Ambassador Saleem talking about this particular leader being one of the moderates, he's been taken out rather than those military leaders who are based in Gaza. So the implications in terms of the escalation as far as the regional escalation is concerned, how do you think Iran is going to respond to this particular act of aggression by Israel?
I think Iran is very much ready to retaliate. We have already seen the projectile attacks from Iran side, and that was very much devastating for Israel. Israel was very much astonished, and even there was a wave of surprise across the globe, if we see. So for this reason, I think there is official statement from Iran that there will be harsh punishment for Israel, and it was from the supreme leader of Iran, Ayatollah Khamenei, right? So now it means that it will not go unanswered, right? Anything, for example, that can be a direct attack possible. It can be a support more support to Hamas and more support to Hezbollah, which is already there from Iran's side. And the third, the proxy wars and the proxy rivalry already going on in different regions and parts of Middle East. So from Iran side, I think that can be a tough, retaliation and answer. That's very much possible. On the other side, if we see the implications or the consequences, so those would be very much dire consequences. Why? Because already it's almost 10 months that this war is going on, and there is genocide of Palestinians from the Israel. There is call again and again from the world community for a ceasefire or to stop this brutality from the Israel, right? But Israel is not bothering, to listen anyone in the world, not the United States, not the ICJ, not the United Nations. But why now it's very much dangerous, and why in near future we can see a horrible picture of the Middle East, particularly this the Palestinian cause, because just few days back we have seen that China brokered a deal, right, for the Palestinian unity. So there were 14 groups from Palestine, and especially the two big groups, Hamas and Fatah, the very much traditional rivals. They get together in Beijing, and with the Chinese Foreign Minister, Mr. Wang Yi, it was facilitated, and there was a breakthrough, right? I think to have an interim national reconciliation after the war ends.
So that particular unity already brokered by China, as you have just mentioned, the 14 groups from the Palestinian side, declaring that particular unity, including both Hamas and Fatah. Now, this particular assassination attempt, do you think it is going to have more cementing effect to that particular unity, as also been urged by President Mahmoud Abbas also?
I think so, yeah. It can be for, a facilitating, I would say, element for more cementing cause, cementing unity between these two rival groups of Palestine. But on the other hand, yes, it can give very tough time to the Israelis, because there is no
tough time to Israelis. The manifestation of could be what? I'll come back to you, take your deeper understanding regarding that. For now, we are joined by another participant, Dr. Zenab Ahmed. She's Chairperson, Department of International Relations at Lahore Garrison University. Dr. Zainab, thank you very much for your time, for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. Now, this particular assassination attempt, what motives, the immediate motives, do you think Israeli regime could have with this particular assassination attempt? And how crucial at this particular point in time is the unity among all the Palestinian factions? President Mahmoud Abbas urging Palestinian people to be more steadfast and united in the face of Israeli occupation.
Assalamu alaikum, Jawad. Am I audible?
Yes, please go ahead. We can hear you loud and clear.
Thank you, Jawad, for taking me in my view. I think today is a day, this whole conflict has been quite worrisome, but today is the day when we all should worry much more. I do not see any other motive of Israel other than just trying to escalate this conflict to wider level. And I think that Israel has been trying for last 10 months to actually increase the level and increase the pace of this conflict. Now, we need to understand the pressures for Israeli government, in particular for Prime Minister Netanyahu. There is a lot of pressure on him internally, domestic pressure. The domestic politics is certainly not supporting him. The decision of prolonging this war is not at all popular in Israel itself. And he needs to keep his command very strong within Israel and within the Israeli establishment. So, one, this pressure, and second, I reckon that during his last visit to the U.S., although he was able to address the Congress, due to the upcoming elections in the U.S., both the Congress and the Democrat presidential nominees, they had to distance themselves, and probably though only for the show to the public, they had to apparently snub Netanyahu. So I think it is very much the intention of Prime Minister Netanyahu to put American establishment and American government also under pressure to support him. and to escalate the conflict. Now, bringing this conflict to the point where they attacked the top leader of Hamas in Iran. Earlier, the reports were that they were the assassins who killed him entering into the building, and the reports now coming in that there was airstrike. It is more worrisome that committing an airstrike on Iranian soil in Tehran when he was there to attend that ceremony, this is a direct attack on Iran too. And let me remind another thing here, Jawad, that the last response of Iran when the Iranian generals were killed in Damascus, that last response of Iran was quite calculated and quite within the perimeters where they did not clearly showed that Iran did not want to escalate the conflict.
Right,
they just wanted
well taken. I seek your pardon for the interjection over here. From this particular, I'll take this particular point that you had just mentioned. This has happened on the Iranian territory, a breach of the territorial integrity of Iran, the breach of sovereignty. Is there any mechanism under the international law or the international community or the major powers or the United Nations Security Council in particular could hold the aggressor of this particular act accountable?
What we have been witnessing for last 10 months, Jawad, the International Court of Justice, the UN, the international agencies, they all have failed to stop Israel. Israel is not fighting the war anymore. Israel is actually committing the genocide and trying to annihilating the Palestinians. So I do not see that Israel is going to take the pressure of any international community. Now, there are 2-3 factors very important. That U.S. is compelled to support Israel in case of any Iranian response. Another important actor which has been playing a very positive role is China, which was able to bring all the stakeholders in Palestine on the table. The response of all Palestinian factions is very important. If they decide to join hands in reaction to this, and what would be the reaction of Iran this time, that is very important.
So what could be the possible manifestation of that particular response by Iran in response to this particular assassination?
Iran resorts to, again, a calculated response as they did in the case of the killing of the generals in Syria. And I think that what Netanyahu wants to achieve might not have been achieved completely. But if Iran is also compelled to respond to a greater extent, the conflict is destined to escalate. I think we need to see what role does China play again in supporting Iran also in its reaction, because I do not see that Russia would also hold back and Russia is going to fully support Iran. And what we see that the world is clearly now divided on one side we see the US and on the other China, Russia and Iran troika and Turkey. Turkey is also going to be with Iran. So this is the clear division which we all had been looking up to for last few years. That is quite clear now.
Dr. Zenab Ahmed, Chairperson, Department of International Relations at Lahore Garrison University, thank you very much for taking time out for Views and News tonight. We really appreciate that. Let me once again proceed to Mr. Nader Al-Turk. Mr. Nader Al-Turk, now this particular statement by President Mahmoud Abbas urging the Palestinian people to remain united and steadfast in the face of Israeli occupation. Now we have recently also seen China brokering that particular declaration of unity by the 14 different groups from the 14 groups from Palestine. How crucial at this particular point in time is this unity and that steadfastness on the part of the Palestinian people against Israeli occupation?
Yes, brother, I like to repeat the words, the wise words was used by our President, His Excellency Mahmoud Abbas, when he launching the condolence of Ismail Haniyeh. He said that we need to be patient and united to face the Israelis' occupation. Be patient, which means we don't need to taking any emotional steps. Give the opportunity for the Israelis criminals, army or settlers to do something more against our people. Be united by getting all of us following the statement and the agreement which was launched by the support of our brothers in China, Chinese government, to make the Palestinians political parties united behind Palestinian Liberation Organization, PLO, behind the leadership of His Excellency Mahmoud Abbas, by getting a flexible, strong political actions to get our freedom, liberty, independence by establishing our independent state with Jerusalem as its capital, according to 181 resolution. This was the statement done by the Palestinian political parties. 2334 resolution, which speak about illegal Israeli settlements on the Palestinian territories, and 194 resolution, which speak about right of return of Palestinian refugees to their own properties, which is waiting to be activated since 1948. So the wise words of His Excellency Mahmoud Abbas, leading us for being more united to facing the crimes of the Israelis, to facing the genocide in Gaza, ethnic cleansing in Gaza, facing the Israelis plan to displace Palestinian, transfer Palestinian people out of Gaza first, second, out of West Bank, and to include East Jerusalem, to be sure that the Israelis plans to get the whole land of Palestine to become only for the Zionists to be damaged and fell down again. This is our leadership plan, and we need to be united behind our leadership. This is first. On the other hand, the Israelis are working hard since 7th of October to rebuild their image as a superpower country by killing more and more Palestinians. They try to rebuild their image, which was damaged on 7th of October by our flesh and our blood. That's why their crimes are aggressive, and they infect every rules of the international law, every rules of the international humanitarian law. They are working hard to destroy all the international resolutions. And I think so, later on, the international society need again to reactivate the old United Nations resolution, which is make Zionists equal to Nazi, equal to apartheid. This is apartheid system, this is apartheid regime, this illegal occupation to Palestinians state need to be end. We need to be united, not as a Palestinians only, but as a humanity, against these crimes against the humanity, against these crimes against the international law. Be united to activate the international resolution in favor of Palestine by establishing Palestinians independent state with Jerusalem as its capital, and activate and facilitate the right of return for Palestinian refugees to their own territories and their own homes. This is what we are waiting from humanity, not only from our Muslim Ummah, but all humans need to be united to end this genocide, end these Israeli crimes. The cover of Americans until now make them run away with their crimes against humanity, but this thing's going to be end. We see the changes of the political position of the British government, the new British government, after the election. And we are waiting to see same steps from the new leadership of United States of America to be more human, be more following more and more the international law, international resolution, by stop blindly support the Israelis.
Right. Mr. Excellency Nader Al-Turk, Deputy Palestinian Head of Mission, Palestinian Embassy in Pakistan. Thank you very much for taking time out for views on news tonight. We really appreciate that. For now, we are honored to have been joined by another participant on the phone line. Dr. Asad Noor is Vice Chairman, Pakistan-Palestine Forum. Dr. Noor, thank you very much for your time, for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. This particular assassination by Israelis, what motive do you think they do have with this particular assassination, and what sort of implications overall it is going to have on the region?
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Jawad. Thank you for having me on the show. You see, for the last so many months, we are trying to emphasize this single point. You see, whatever is going on in Palestine, it's similar to what two tectonic plates do when a volcano is about to erupt. Whatever is happening in Palestine is just that magma which has, come out against resistance of these two tectonic plates. So there are two sides. You see, on one side, there is China and its allies, which want to make the world, I think, a better place for living. They want to, earn their finances and get a better GDP, and they want to have a good economy by some other means, some non-invasive means. But then there is this side, which is governed by the warlords, which are always hunting for opportunities to sell their weapons and stuff, and they just want to keep the world a warm place and a hotter place always. So, coming back to Palestine, you see, we cannot expect anything from our brothers and sisters and our, brethren from within Palestine. They cannot do anything. And honestly speaking, it's not up to them. It's not their responsibility. They don't have the means. They don't have the capacity. There are only two powers which can do something beneficial in this regard in order to, stop this conflict, this genocide. Time and again, we have been, emphasizing on this thing. One power is the OPEC, and the second power is the veto states. So you see, whenever there is a ceasefire request raised in the United States Security Council, the United States, which are friends, they just stop, they veto it. And then in the General Assembly, when they were trying to stop Israel from all these, this massacre and manslaughter, then again, this had no effect on the whole overall situation. Now coming to what happened, recently, you see, Mr. Haniyeh was a state guest in Iran. Iran is a Muslim military nuclear might, you see, in inverted commas. So they have killed their guest, their state guest. So I think I'm really afraid, and I think for the last so many months I was emphasizing this, that Israel just wants, to escalate this issue. They want to turn this into a world war. And China and their allies, they are trying to, stop this from happening. But there are some powers which are trying to convert this situation into a world war. But I think maybe sanity will prevail, and this will not turn out to be a world war for us. But Israel is trying their level best.
Asad Noor, Vice Chairman, Pakistan-Palestine Forum, joining us on the phone line. Thank you very much for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. Ambassador Saleem, now there are condemnations which have poured in, including from Turkey, Russia, China, Malaysia, Iraq, Pakistan. Pakistan's Foreign Office has also released a statement regarding this particular assassination, saying terrorism in all its forms and manifestations, including extrajudicial and extraterritorial killings, irrespective of the motives. Now, this particular last part of this particular sentence is quite worth noting, irrespective of the motives. No matter whatever the motives are, nobody is allowed, no state is allowed to go on extrajudicial and extraterritorial killings. Now, how Pakistan, being the Muslim brotherly country of Iran, also the concern which has been expressed by China and Russia, how these major regional countries can actually collaborate with Iran at this point in time to bring that aggressor to justice or hold it accountable in the before the Committee of Nations?
Yeah, there are multiple principles that have been violated. The principle of territorial integrity, sovereignty, then again the international law in terms of, you can't really wage such a extrajudicial, extraterritorial attacks. And, and then the diplomatic sort of, like decency that, there was an inauguration ceremony going on in Iran, a presidential inauguration ceremony, and he was a state guest there. And Israelis know that he was in Qatar, and he had visited Iran in recent months as well before. But why did they choose to assassinate at this particular juncture on this occasion. So, but all these countries, the condemnation have poured in from a lot of countries in the world. And I think the right forum, besides, of course, countries issuing their statements, is the United Nations. So we have to see in the coming days if this matter is taken up within the United Nations, or perhaps the United Nations Security Council, because that is the right forum for such, and that is the only forum where you could have resolutions, even binding resolutions that could matter, especially if they're under Chapter 7. But having said that, I think the statements now emerging from Iran, they indicate that there would be some retaliation, even if it's like the last time, if it's a symbolic retaliation, that could be one possibility, or it could be a more serious retaliation. Then in terms of the Palestinians, the statement coming from Mahmoud Abbas, I think these are wise words. He's even at this juncture, even in such a situation, he's calling for patience. Perhaps this is the time for strategic patience, because the fact remains that in case of an escalation, a greater escalation, the Palestinians, the innocent Palestinians, which are being devastated within Gaza, which are being hurt, like so grievously, who are facing inhuman conditions, who are facing war crimes, who are facing state terrorism, they could, that could prolong, they could face greater suffering. So at this point in time, I think the international community needs to do two things. First of all, of course, these condemnations, because if every country starts doing these type of things, and that is why the Pakistan statement is important, where you also pointed out the motive. Okay, fine. We know that Israelis had declared him a terrorist, and there were other countries as well in the West, some of which recognized that. But the fact is, you can't do that. I mean, then every country could declare somebody a terrorist and start hunting them down extrajudicially and extraterritorially. Then there would be no international law in the world, So we have to decide whether we are going to live under a rules-based international order, or we are going to be living under an international order where might is right, And that is why I think that all these countries need to raise their voices, and perhaps this matter needs to be discussed within the United Nations
Security Council. And if it is taken up to the United Nations Security Council, what sort of role do you see of the United States of America regarding this particular assassination in particular? Keeping the track record in mind, as far as they have been vetoing that particular resolution asking for a ceasefire over there most recently, since 7th of October.
If there's a resolution against Israel, it's very likely that they will still veto it, But the fact is that if this matter is discussed there, that is very symbolic then. And that, because that is where the countries, they really they have to take their positions, And whatever discussion takes place in the United Nations Security Council, it has a weightage. And then more importantly, that would help de-escalate the situation as well. Because there has to be some forum where you discuss that. Otherwise, what would countries do if it's not going to be discussed? Then the countries would just take retaliatory strikes and then counter strikes, and then the situation you're leading to a escalation of a cycle of violence.
Your point is well taken. Unfortunately, we are short of time. I'll have to take the closing comment from Dr. Afridi also. Are you also in the favor of strategic patience? When we talk about the strategic patience, is it only applicable as far as that particular statement by Mahmoud Abbas is concerned for the Palestinian people? And what about the Iranian policy? Should Iran also be exhibiting strategic patience at this point in time and not retaliate immediately?
I think every state, every group, every political party, it considers all the parameters while discussing and formulating any kind of plan or executing any plan or formulating a decision in this regard. But as far as the statement from Mahmoud Abbas is concerned, I think it's a high time for all the Palestinians, for the Arabs, for the even Muslim Ummah to have patience at this time. Already genocide that is going on, they have to think about a well-formulated, well-articulated strategy how to deal with Israel, have to end this occupation and
what about Iran's
genocide.
approach, in particular separately when its territorial integrity and sovereignty has been breached?
I think Iran, it will also consider it not necessarily to have retaliation in 24 hours or maybe in 48 hours, but they will retaliate maybe after a short span of time by consulting with different institutions within its own state, by their own authorities to have to develop a consensus about the future plan with Israel, with the Middle Eastern region, and also Iran has too many stakes in different countries of the Middle East. It has good relations with Iran, with Turkey, it has good relations with Iraq, and also with some other countries. So in this regard, I think Iran will also think about the patience.
Is there any role, a quick closing comment regarding, is there any role Russia or China could play at this point in time to not the situation get into escalation further?
I think the only role they can play, that can be within the United Nations.
Dr. Manzoor, Afridi, expert international relations, thank you very much for taking time out for Views on News tonight. Really appreciate that. And also Mr. Jauhar Saleem, former Foreign Secretary and President currently at the Institute of Regional Studies. Thank you very much for your time, also for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. With that, we come to the end of today's episode. Till the next one, take good care of yourselves.